And I mean, my whole career, I was working to that point only to be let go. Now, who am I if nobody else is giving me gold stars and telling me my work matters? So in this desire phase, we have to do a lot of identity work to start decoupling the fact that you aren't your career.
Hello, everyone. Today, I'm so excited for this guest. We often think of a bold move that it has to always be drastic and big and something that's on the other side of now. But what if there's actually steps or a recipe to it? I'm so excited for this guest because we have a lot in common from my perspective. I know she has done a lot just from hearing her side of things, and I can't wait to get into it a bit in terms of values and alignment and her genuine curiosity in conversations with other people. So I'm so excited to introduce to you Kristen Rocco. She impacts lives at the intersection of storytelling and community building. And for over 15 years, she'd worked as a brand and content leader for global companies, mastering the art of turning corporate strategy into human connection. And today, she's the host of Bold Moves, How Did You Know podcast. And as a Bold Moves mentor and coach, she uses that same ambition through a storytelling lens to bridge the gap between where people are and where they want to go. Similar to the vibe of TrueIcon, which I'm so excited to get into this. So she helps ambitious women who might be at a crossroads of the shoulds, all the shoulds that life has, into that life of agency. So at that moment, whether of a wake-up call, whether it's a layoff, whether it's a personal challenge, or just that quiet exhaustion of that high-performing games that, if you're in my audience, you probably might be relating to, that you no longer want to play, Kristen actually has that framework to help you decide and decode that click and make your own bold move that puts you in the driver's seat. So I'm so excited. Kristen, welcome.
Jen, wow, that introduction. Thank you. So kind. I'm so excited to be here. It's so interesting to be on this side of the podcast mic, and it's exciting for me to talk to another podcaster. So I can't wait for this conversation today. And as you said, so many similar values. We're having the same conversation because it's a conversation that people are needing to hear, wanting to hear. They feel it, right? It's this internal compass saying something's off. I need to shift, but I'm not sure how. So I'm excited to dive all the way in today, Jen.
And I think you're right, because we're having the conversations, a lot of it's internally, and we don't know that other people are thinking it. So just getting it out there allows other people to realize, okay, I'm not the only one who thinks that there might be more in life out there, that who might not be happy where I am, but it looks like everyone else is happy. So why can't I just be happy where I am? So I appreciate that. And I love the journey that you have as well, because you not only, after talking with so many people, have unlocked and realized the different parts of the bold moves, but also just taking chances in general. But you also have your own story. So I'm excited to kind of blend both worlds today. And yes, flip the script a little bit and have the conversation about you. So I guess before we get into any of that, this is something sometimes I ask this. So what's something that maybe people might not either know about you in general, or if they first meet you, something that they might be surprised about?
Oh my gosh, that is a great question to kick us off. Something that people are surprised about. I think people might be surprised to know that when I was in my mid-20s, maybe through early 30s, I was a heavy salsa dancer. I picked up salsa dancing in Atlanta and I fell in love with it. And I started going out to all the salsa clubs and salsa classes 3 to 4 times a week, salsa dancing.
Wow.
Yeah. And then eventually, after a couple of years of doing salsa dancing here in Atlanta, moved to New York and continued doing it in New York for several years. And then my ambitions and passions kind of evolved and I stopped doing as much salsa dancing. But you can find me at a salsa club every now and again. I do still love it, and it comes back like riding a bike.
That's amazing. And I'm glad that you had so much in it too, because I'm sure it's a practice, but you get in it and it actually, I'm sure, relaxes the body and the mind and just Just
Actually, that's such a great point. When I'm dancing, and I think this is why I picked it up in the first place, and what I come back to often when I need a breather or to find myself again or, reconnect. It's not finding myself again, it's just to reconnect because it does give me that freedom. I can just be in the moment of dancing.
I used to be so shy of dancing. I used to just stand in the middle of the floor as if this was better to stand my arms down and just stand there as if that didn't stand out. And then once I actually let go and like, well, I love to dance, then it's more freeing. And I was like, you're so brave. And I'm like, well, I just like to dance and I'm just gonna do it because why not? It's fun and it's freeing.
This is a great metaphor we're landing on because people, yeah, it's when you're like tight and, restrictive and you're like, I don't like to dance. It might be because of your openness. You're not maybe willing to be as open and try something new and let that just take you away. Now, it doesn't have to be dancing, of course, but I think this is a big part of being bold is trying new things, being willing to be a beginner again. And so it does require that curiosity and that openness to let loose and be okay with not being great.
Yeah, and for me, it was fear of rejection, and that's also with taking bold moves that you have to be okay with that rejection. And oh yeah, it's such a great metaphor to a lot of things that we'll talk about today, and even just putting yourself out there, or the freedom to it, or even the trade-offs of, okay, you spend more time here, and you mentioned like it changed a bit, now you're still back at it. So there's always a journey, but in that moment it gives you life. So, see, now I learned something and the audience learned something too. Okay, so now almost the opposite of that, of those moments, we're going to go into your journey of maybe where you were and where you are now, but maybe the shift too. So, let's take younger Kristen. I don't know how many years before when you know the age, the range where you were in those moments was the opposite of that flexibility, that freedom, and maybe you were thinking there was more and you weren't. Do you mind painting that picture for us?
Yeah. So if it's okay, it might be helpful to like go back to, my earliest memories around what I thought I wanted to do
Well, that's perfect.
and then kind of how it evolved. And actually, now that I'm thinking about this, see, this is why it's so helpful to have conversation because then you can learn something or rediscover something about yourself that you had forgotten. And so, what I'm thinking about right now is that early on, some of my earliest memories with my dad in particular was watching football games with him. Huge New York Giants fans here, and he's a huge New York Giants fan. And every Sunday we would sit on the couch and watch games together. And I just remember being really kind of enamored by the broadcast journalists, the sports commentators who were calling the games and on the field interviewing people, interviewing the players. I just thought that was the coolest thing. And similarly, I remember watching Katie Couric on the Today Show at that time. I'm dating myself here. But anyways, Katie Couric was on the Today Show. And I just love that she was interviewing people and learning about them and discovering more things about life through other people. That really, I didn't know how to articulate it back then, but that really was such a important imprint on my life. And so, as I was like going through school and deciding, of course, when I was in college, what did I want to do with my life?
Yeah.
I don't know at 18, you can really know what you want to do with your life forever. But my best guess was at, following this path of communication, journalism, storytelling. And so I went on to major in communications and I thought, okay, well, I don't exactly know where this is going to land me, but it'll get me into a field that somewhat, at least tangentially, will, connect me into telling stories. And so, actually, I think that, when we are growing up, at least this is my experience, I'd love to hear yours as well, but we are paying attention to our inner compass. That's guiding our decision making around what we could potentially do with our careers. And I jumped in and I eventually graduated college and all the things, and kind of got my start in communications in the field of public relations. I started working at a firm on behalf of an entrepreneur. I was a third
Wow.
hire. So he was just getting started on his journey, and I was there to support him with accounts, doing the actual public relations, public publicist work, and then also new business, helping bring clients into the firm. So it was actually a really big job for a really early in her career person.
Yeah.
But I think it helped me learn that I really did enjoy the storytelling. And so I wanted to keep going down that path because I was telling franchisee stories at that time. It was a franchise focused firm, PR firm. And so I was telling a lot of their stories and helping them get into their media and their local markets through their stories. And I really loved it. And then, here's the thing though, the market evolves, right? And so PR was popular. Or at least a great career path then. It still is today. But social media started coming onto the scene.
Mm.
Pretty quickly, I started getting into social media marketing and helping using social media to amplify the stories. And then, I moved to New York after I was early in my career, I was in Atlanta. Then I wanted to follow my own compass again. And I just have a soul connection to New York City. And I knew that I had to live there. And so I decided that, I was going to move there. Was working at that job, that PR job. And I, went to my boss a little bit nervous, hesitant to tell him that I was going to be moving to New York and, I would be open to working for his firm while there, or I was just going to quit. So
Wow.
fortunately, he let me stay on. And this was like remote work was not a thing then, but,
Yeah, that's big.
yeah. So I got to stay on there. And then I did eventually change firms, but content marketing then started to become an evolution of my space. And so I quickly got into content marketing where I could exercise not just interviewing skills and pitching media, but also then interpreting that into online publications and newsletters and social media and things like that. So that kind of continues to evolve, but I think that I was continuing to stay in my lane in terms of what I wanted to do, but over time I started realizing the structure in which I was doing my jobs became more challenging. And that probably had to do with going from working for a smaller, medium sized company to a very large global organization with lots of layers and processes and ways of working. And, a little bit of at the end of my career, or not, oh my gosh, Jen, I am not at the end of my career. I'm just starting. But
We're just starting.
at the end
Yes.
of that phase of my career, I was senior director of content marketing at a Fortune 500 company. I just, over time, I had so many ambitions, and I wanted to um, lead my team and do so many great things, but there was a lot of just blocks. There were a lot of challenges, and I ended up feeling more like a square peg in a round hole. That's the best way I know how to describe the contrast. And this is kind of point number one around bold moves is that I think the first time you start to realize that a bold move is needed is when you find contrast, right? You're like, this just doesn't feel like me. I'm not quite sure what it is, but something's off. There's a misalignment. There's some sort of dissonance. And for me, that kind of started happening. I was like, I need I I want some I want to understand not just why is this happening to me now and how do I interpret this information, but how do I stop repeating the patterns from happening again? Because I have, in some of my previous roles too, I had started to feel some dissonance and contrast. And I was like, I just don't want to keep going and getting another job. And then this happens again. I really wanted to learn more, sure, about myself, but I'm like, I'm going to be accountable to the fact that I'm not doing this perfectly either. There may be something there that's my responsibility to learn about and then have that ability to change or evolve my approach. And so I started career coaching, and I learned a ton about, and this is where all the things I was feeling in my body then transferred into my head. And I was realizing that learning around, that square peg, round hole feeling was more about a lack of value alignment between my current what I was currently doing and who I really am at my core. And there were so many other realizations that came into play in that moment. But, I started that career coaching about a year before I ended up getting laid off. And so a lot of people I know can relate to the fact that to a layoff. And I was laid
Yeah.
off in 2023. And I remember I had been doing the career coaching. I also was in therapy. I was trying to learn so much about myself and where I could go or what I wanted to do. That wasn't just shifting because the market was shifting. I talked about all of those times where it was like, I went from PR into social media into content marketing because of how the market was shifting and who I thought I needed to become in order to then get the success that everybody talks about. And after I got laid off and I had been doing all the career coaching, I was like, I need a minute to make sure that the next path I go down isn't just because of what was expected of someone like me, but was really about what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. And so I decided that, I was pretty quick to choose differently after the layoff. So prior version of Kristen Rocco would have freaked out about being laid off, right? The
Yeah.
instability and the uncertainty of that moment would have really caused panic. And there was panic, okay? I'm not saying there was no panic, but
Oh, yeah. I bet.
because I had done so much discovery and I was so much more aware of myself and where I wanted to go, I was like, I'm going to take this moment to apply some of the things that I had learned and I'm going to actually start consulting instead of getting another job right now. That's what I felt like I was meant to do. And then I started the Bold Moves podcast alongside of all of it because again,
Yeah.
we're all on this path of constant learning. I mean, life is all about continuous learning. And I didn't have the recipe or the playbook for making this type of bold move. And I thought, you know what? But I do love interviewing people. I love learning about people. Going back to how I said I wanted to be a Katie Couric back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Thought, let me see what these people are doing to make bold moves. And I'm going to learn something in the process. And hopefully I can apply it to my life and then it can help other people. So I launched Bold Moves. How did I know? Bold Moves. How did you know? Excuse me, is the podcast name. So, anyways, let me stop. I know I just said,
Yeah. No, I was taking it in, and I appreciate that full journey because there's so many routes I could have paused it and could have stopped there, but then it evolving even further. And I relate so much to this because in some way, it's very fascinating because in some ways I relate to a lot of your mindset, and in other ways, I had this fear of people. So I love learning from people. And PR was like my worst nightmare because I love delegating that, but I love the people side because my anxiety, again, it goes back from when I was younger of being afraid of putting myself out there and feeling afraid of that rejection. And I didn't know my own voice. So in the beginning, you mentioned that intuition and you're guided to like from even the people you see on TV, like the interviews even from the Giants. And for me, it was more of like watching the games, go Rangers, New York Rangers for hockey for with my dad. And it was less of the interviews and it was more of the presence. But what I found was you had those elements then that you like gravitated towards, but then you work towards it and then something still goes disarray. And what I think is helpful for people who might be experiencing this too, you might find it that missing piece. You're looking for that missing piece, whether it is in the self-help books. There's that book, I don't know if you know it, like the parachute, like where's my parachute or find my parachute or whatever book it is. Someone feel free to comment, but it's it's where I was trying to find, like, out of my strengths, where am I supposed to be? I went into school undeclared. I went in an environmental science major in some schools, marketing in another, what is that? For physical therapy. So I mean, now I'm a personal trainer. I do the TrueIcon podcast and I'm like doing coaching and workshops. So it kind of blends together the creativity and that, but like I had no idea what it was and worked at a startup. Like I did all the data stuff, the behind the scenes. Like I would tell someone like, okay, I have all this stuff. I'll write the white papers. I'll put the publications in there, but like someone else handle all of that stuff. So it's very interesting how your route takes all of these different turns. And I think different people listening can relate to different parts of it as well, because there are very key components. You know, even going to New York City, like that's huge. And I was actually listening at a different time to one of your podcast episodes where someone was afraid of like fear. Fear is a big thing. And then they went to New York City because they had this drive and I'm going to be afraid anyways. So I might as well do it afraid. I'm going to be afraid if I'm doing the little things or the big things. So do the things I
Yes.
really sit with. And that's noteworthy. And I also want to dive into a little bit with the contrast. Like, I guess for someone listening, including myself, that's a word that is more unfamiliar to me, but I definitely probably experienced it after my journey as well. So I guess I was sitting a lot with the I wish wishing for more kind of thing. And even I worked at a startup company and it was the stuff I did was great. But then afterwards I left and got a different job. So I had the job, I had the career, I had the title, had all the things. I'm like, what's missing? So is that
That's
contrast
the
or is like
contrast.
something different?
Yeah, that's the contrast, right? Yeah, I think everybody who asks the question, is there something more? Or
Mm,
I feel like I'm trudging through life, or I, I, I keep having this thing in like this ping in my stomach saying to me, do this, but I'm doing this, right? It's where there's misalignment, and that's always the start, at least I can say at 99% certain, of a bold move, because the
yeah.
contrast ends up giving you clarity. My career coach told me that, and it was like an automatic click, right? It's where are you feeling misalignment and why are you feeling it? And that
And it's so
misalignment,
strong.
yeah,
Once it goes, it's hard to once it bubbles up, it's hard to ignore, and I think that's why, like, when big things happen, like, sometimes it's a layoff, sometimes it's a gift. I mean, I hear so many people say it was a gift because I wanted to, I just didn't have it in me, and for me, it was internal, like, I everything's bubbling up, I cannot stay
ignore.
here and sustain. So it was like I had to. So that's that interest and the you mentioned the different expectations. Like that also I mean there's so many huge moments of this, the different expectations of what you should do and what everyone else says you should do or what you thought you should do. And it's okay to change. I wanted to really highlight that, before layoff, before all of that, and even before the like your podcast before because that's a lot to unpack. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of being brave to look within and acknowledge the things that are challenging that I think sometimes
Because it's
don't.
scary. It's scary to do that because it's
Yeah.
going to unveil things about you that you really want, but that you're scared because you've been pushing it away for some reason, and it comes down to limiting beliefs. Typically, fear of failure, fear of, you're playing small, and there's something fear of judgment. What will other people think? What will my parents say? There's so many things, criticism, right? There's so many things that could pop up when you're vulnerable enough to look inside. And then it makes you really look at them and you have to face it at that point. You have to say, am I going to continue on path A and ignore what I really want because path A is safer? Or am I going to go down path B and make the path B and make the bold move, but have to really work through some of those old fear or those things that are blocking my way there. And there's a lot of conversation about playing small versus playing big. And I didn't really understand what that meant, Jen. Oh, okay, like let me go play big, That's how I'm going to reach all my dreams is play big. But I think now in having all of these conversations, to me, the difference between playing small and playing big is that you move in the direction of where your inner desire is leading you. And by doing that, you are overcoming so many of those different blocks or limiting beliefs and they come up at every stage in the journey. They never go away. But now you're just, it, the awareness helps you kind of, oh, I've been here before. I can do it again. Right. And that's how you just play. That's how you personally
Yeah.
play big. Playing big doesn't mean you have to be, speaking on a stage to 100,000 people, right? It's your version of playing big. And to get there, you do have to move through some of these fears.
Yeah, and it could be, so many cases. You mentioned, say, parents, for example, say if someone, lawyer, doctor, whatever, this is who you should be. And like that inner desire is just not there. Like maybe you want to help people, but there's other ways to help people. And that could also be maybe you really want to have a family and you have this drive for career, but your heart is telling you in one way. And it could be those small moments of listening to yourself, because for me it was hard to listen to myself because I pushed myself down for so long. So everyone's like, be yourself, be yourself. I'm like, okay, great, but how do I be myself if I don't know myself? So I
It's
had to
very bad
find
advice.
myself.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before. There's some advice out
Yeah.
there that is typical but very bad, and you would think that be yourself would be helpful advice. It is not helpful advice because if you're asking, if somebody says be yourself and you don't know how that works or how to tap into that, it's unactionable. So advice is only good if it's actionable, right? And that's what I've tried to do with the Bold Moves recipe is,
Yeah.
yeah, you're like, I do want to be myself 100%. No clue how to access that.
No clue. Okay, so we're in the journey now. We're changing. Why would what's the benefit of even doing all that inner work?
Mm,
Why would someone even, oh, it's going to be hard. Why would even want to go through all that stuff? Like what's now on the other side? What's
yeah.
emerging on the other side?
I'm so glad you asked that, right? Because it's like this is hard work and the mantra for my podcast and for my community on Substack is no one said being bold is easy. So here we go at it together. It isn't easy. And I shared, often my journey, of 15 years of playing by a playbook that was prescribed, right? It's the corporate playbook. You go graduate. I mean, even think about it. We start this way from school. You go to school, you get good grades, you then get into a great college and oh, it would be amazing if you got into an Ivy, right? And then you get into a career path and you're looking at the best version of that career path possible. Nobody's looking at it saying, I want to just keep being entry level my whole career. No, that's not how it works. Everybody is looking for the promotions and the success and all the prestige and acknowledgement and credit, and then financial compensation that comes with it. And so we're all working within a system. Now, that's one system. There are other systems, that we also get our beliefs from.
We've had the hard conversations. We really thought, like, worked on ourselves and tried to figure out, okay, now I have more of an alignment. You realize the misalignment, the contrast. So now we're getting to the next step where maybe, I mean, in your case, like were taking the bigger move. So like, what's after? Like, you
Yeah.
realize everything. Now what? Like,
Why do you?
why? What comes?
Yes.
What's the benefit?
Okay. So the real reason that I started my journey was to find fulfillment. Because I had always been looking for the next better shiny object. Oh, okay, I'm going to move
Yeah.
into social media because that's going to get me to the next stepping stone to find the next the
Yeah.
ultimate goal, right? And when you go through, I mean, I'm midlife now. And so when you do that so many times and you find out that, oh, there's just always more to strive for. Because so I'm a very ambitious person. But I did get tired of striving. I'm like, can't I just exist and be? And for me, I wanted to find the fulfillment of making a bold move that I could just be content with. And I can really know that this is my greatest gift to the world. Or that sounds so big. And I really don't want to make it sound so big because it's really just tuning into who you are and what you want and whether that it helps you. But I do think that helps you tap into your purpose. And that's where you find the fulfillment. And so that was the big reason. And that's a big outcome of being bold is that you will find fulfillment with making a bold move because it's so reflective of who you are.
Yeah, that's what I was seeking too. And I know other people the same in conversations. Like you're seeking this fulfillment, but you're finding it on the only path you might know. So like whether it is school, like you mentioned, whether it is, this journey that you should do this, the finances that, I mean, things will come and we can't deny that we need to support our own lifestyle and support our life. But like in those ways where you're constantly like saying yes to everyone else but yourself, it's like you could be on a great path. Like I said, you're on a great path. Like even myself, like head of managing different teams for data and reporting to C-suite, like great path for someone else. Like it's at that moment of realization of, oh, okay, you can take those next steps. But I was seeking fulfillment on that lane. So I think the thinking bigger for me in some cases resonates, in others it's very interesting how some things resonates only when it's time to resonate. Like for me, thinking bigger was like unveiling like everything, like who am I, identity based. I mean, it's very, very deep in all levels of it, of like how I want to live, how I want to be healthy, all of that. But like unpacking that tunnel vision I had for success. And that's how I found that fulfillment. Like I've had overwhelming days and moments of gratitude. Like I am so grateful for just being here now and the relationship and a lot of the things I've built has helped me now, but even grateful in the good times and the bad times because I'm here and I want to take it in. And I think I would have never been able to be there without striving for more is one, but letting go is the other part of letting go of all the things I should be happy now. Well, I can just be happy and then life can be hard. Life is, and that's okay, but I'm not going to let that take away from my own. You can find fulfillment now, and it's so much helpful when you find that alignment.
Yeah. And I don't want to sugarcoat. It's not all rainbow and butterflies, especially, I mean, we'll talk about, you know, the whole desire phase of the recipe. But as you said, peeling back all of the layers is certainly uncomfortable work and very vulnerable work. And it unveils some things that you might have to work through and you might have to confront, right? And this happens all the time. I mean, you come up to more contrast in your life and you have to go and say, what's this about? And why is this happening? And, but it becomes easier because it I don't know if easier is the right word. Maybe it becomes simpler because at the moment where you experience the contrast, you then know how to make the decision. You don't have to wonder about what the right next step is out there or go get feedback from all of the different places because you aren't grounded in your own knowing and being. Does that make sense, Jen?
It's not easy is right. And I think what helped me is realizing that I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel for what I was working on or like for my next step. But then all of a sudden I could see a next step I could see the light of a tunnel at the end of the tunnel. And I think that spark, like that desire. And let's get into, okay, so now we're really embraced with, we are not aligned, we're into that next phase. So like you mentioned it, you hinted at a little bit. So what's that next phase of that bold move in this journey?
Yeah. So, okay. So just to be really clear, the Bold Moves recipe has 3 ingredients, and I've spoken to almost 70 bold movers about their journeys and their discovery of how to, around how do I make a bold move and then what's the work to get there. And it became really clear to me that there's 3 different steps. All have their nuance and layers to them, but 3 different, pillar steps. The first one is desire, or what I call you. And we've talked a lot about that already, right? This is where you stop playing into the old scripts, you release all of the expectations, and you just really think about what you want. And there's a whole process behind that. And as you noted, Jen, in that work is a lot of identity work too, right? Because,
Yeah.
you know, let's just talk about me as a getting laid off as a senior, content marketer in a big organization. I mean, my whole career, I was working to that point only to be let go. Now, who am I if nobody else is giving me gold stars and telling
Yeah.
me my work matters? So, in this desire phase, we have to do a lot of identity work to start decoupling the fact that you aren't your career, right? Or you aren't just, what's another role? You aren't just a mom, right? Or a sister or a friend, whatever. There are so many different pieces to your identity that are worthy and make you you. So we do a lot of work to figure that out. The next step though, and I'll talk about, so it's you, who is the middle, who, and the last part is do or action. So who, okay. So once we get through the desire phase, we've untangled, we've talked about the shoulds and the conditions that you've been playing, the games you've been playing in that you maybe no longer want to play in, or you want to reevaluate your role in those structures. We've now talked about, okay, what do you want? But we've gone deeper into why you want it, because there's such thing as counterfeit desires. And this is where I'm becoming the content leader, because that's how I find success. Instead,
Mm.
I'm becoming the content leader because I am passionate about storytelling and helping other people learn and from other people's stories. That's different, right? You can see how one of those narratives is based on a societal playbook or conditioning around how you do something and why you do it. But then you can see that the other one is actually coming from deeper inside. And so once you understand the deeper reason around why you want what you want, then maybe when I go back, and this is another nuance to the bold moves, maybe I try entrepreneurship for a while because that was what was calling my name then. And it was to fulfill my purpose of sharing stories in the world. But now maybe the vehicle isn't right anymore, but the engine is still there. I still want to tell those
Yeah.
stories, but now I just want to do it in a different way. Totally fine.
Totally fine.
The thing is that, people get caught up in these big moves because they're like, oh, that's going to pigeonhole me into that something forever. No, it's really not, because now you have the underlying motivation of, I'm here to share stories in the world and help connect people and find more of their humanity, or be able to relate to other people, to see that what they're experiencing, other people are experiencing, right? And I can do that in so many different ways. And maybe I tried this way over here, but that's not working for me anymore. So I'm going to try it over here. And again, like, bold movers are really curious. They don't get stuck in, it's a rigid path. No, like, and I think that's another thing that corporate has taught us a lot, is that there's a linear path to success. But actually, no, there can be a horizontal path to your own success. And so this is the work that we do in the desire phase. It's really going deep in there. Once we get to the sort of that's the internal work. Once we get to the phase of the external work, it's about, now how do we take your desires and now start moving in that direction, because a bold move cannot be done without taking action. So as much
Yeah.
work done as you've done on yourself, you needed to apply it to get somewhere to make that bold move, right? And so there's two phases in the external work piece of this. The first one and the second in the recipe is who. And this is a real unlock and missing link for a lot of people, because a lot of people think, in order to make a bold move, I need to know how. But what I'm offering and what other bold movers rely on is who. Other people have the keys to things that you don't know, because often your bold move is going to be well beyond your knowledge. You've never done it before. You may or may not know people who have done it before, right? And so you don't all, here's where it comes to proof it's possible. Proof it's possible matters a lot. If you never have seen an entrepreneur, you've never seen one, you've never talked to one, you've never experienced one, how can you believe that you can be an entrepreneur? It's almost impossible. You don't
Yeah.
know how that you don't know how that life works. You don't know what that is all about. So who means that we apply what you want to finding people who are doing what you want to do. And we can leverage those people in a couple different ways. They can show you it's possible and you can start learning from them. It doesn't have to be in-person conversations. Podcasts like this are fantastic.
Yeah.
Right? Because they expose you to different stories of people doing these things that might appeal to you. So you get to learn from their experiences. But you might want to have conversations with them because you might have questions about how they do things. And you can ask those people how to do it. And they can provide the advice to get you further faster than you would just trying to navigate it on your own.
Oh yeah. And co-working and that's like people think, you have to always see people near you. Like if you don't have people near you in it, exactly, podcasts like this. And for me it was going to a co-working space where a lot of the people were entrepreneurs and built their own business. Not only entrepreneurs, people who are successful businesses. Like I have an idea, I have this as a business idea, and they're like, "Oh wow, we can make that happen." In my head I'm like conceptualizing like, "Oh, I can actually." To them it's no big deal. To them, it's just, okay, we got a new product line, whatever. To me, it's, I didn't know it was possible. And now someone's saying in the real world that my idea is relevant as a business idea. Like getting those is so important. And there's a lot of science behind it too. We don't have to get into that, but like showing and showcasing that it is possible. And yeah, proof. I love it.
Yeah, it's possible. And who unlocks the keys to how? So there's layers to who that we talk about in my mentoring. There's 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 elevators, there's expanders, and there are supporters. And they play different roles. So the first and I love this. I got this idea from Robin Woods, somebody I interviewed on my podcast. But supporters are going to be there your day ones. You're going to say, I'm making this bold move, and they are going to clap you all the way to the end zone. They are so thrilled for you. They're going to congratulate you and just be there for you, kind of like wind behind your back to give you that push of momentum. But they don't have the experience and the knowledge to help you actually. And that's where elevators and expanders come in. Elevators, in my opinion, are those people who can send a hand down. I've done it before, and they can lift you up. They can really, really help you with tactical steps.
Yeah.
Expanders are the people it's the proof it's possible. You're like, oh my gosh, that person is actually doing what I wanted to do. I've never seen anyone do that before. And you start paying attention to them, their thinking and how they're approaching that particular area. Right. So again, who is all about tapping into the knowledge of other people before asking yourself how to do it. Because you get the how from the who, right? Then finally, the last ingredient is do, and it's the taking action. Everything we've talked about so far is awesome, but if you don't put it into action, then it's not going to go anywhere. You're going to just feel stuck. And, you know, the thing about this action phase is that I think people can, they can go through all of the inner work, and we should dissect your bold move in a minute too from these three lenses. But you can go through all of the work and get to okay, I know what I want. I know why I want it. And I know some idea of now how to get it, but it feels so big. It feels so big and I'm overwhelmed. And so what I coach clients around is that we have to break this down into much smaller micro steps. And we have to also be willing to think about all of how you might be able to I'm using manifest not in the woo-woo way, but I'm just saying all of the ways in which to manifest this into reality. So I have this pyramid, the aligned action pyramid. It starts, okay, at the very top is your goal. So that's the goal. That could be the vision. That's the vision. Then we have the milestone. We break it into, what does a milestone look like? What are the milestones to get there? We break that down into micro actions. What are the really small steps you can take day by day or week by week to start getting there? And then the final part of the pyramid is the habits. Because now this habits part is really important. Because remember in the desire phase, we talked about you need to change your identity likely to get to where you want to go. The habits piece is, what are the habits you're doing day after day to fulfill your new identity? There's a stat, 92% of people fail to achieve their goals. And James Clear is very clear about this. He's done a big body of work around why people fail at reaching their goals. And it's because they try to change the outcome of, so you say, I want to lose 20 pounds. And so you say, I'm going to run, I'm going to start running, just to cardio in so that I can lose weight, or I'm going to eat a clean diet, right? That's an outcome-based goal. But an identity-based goal would be, I'm a clean eater, I'm a runner. And so you build habits from that place, because you start kind of tricking your mind that I only do things that runners do. And runners put their shoes by the bed so that they go running every morning before they even have a chance to think about it, they just go running. And once you can build the habit around your new identity, you are that new person. And so that's why we talk a lot about habits as well. And it's very intentional. We start building all of the plan around these different layers so that you can take small actions every day to make your bold move and become that person who is able to be that person that has that move.
Yeah. And I think the cool part is that it can be a decision now. So I am a speaker,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And like you can make it now and have those tiny actions within minutes, because at least like you know your goal, and like, okay, right now I'm a healthy eater, and I'm a healthy eater, so I'm going to go downstairs, I'm going to have a salad.
Mm-hmm.
And that decision can be instant. The habits, the change, the everything else can be
Yeah.
process
Right.
and a journey, but like that decision can be now. And I love those. I always love those types of ideas. And with James Clear, I think there's a lot of tangible elements that he brings to the table. And I want to close the loop on this too. So in that framework, we kind of ended up where like you left corporate,
Mm-hmm.
you got laid off, and that you started the podcast. So maybe now that we know the steps, like you focused on you a lot in the beginning, that desire. We might have heard a little bit of the who, especially the newscasters and people, even when you were younger, which is really cool. And, how about between that and do? Like, let's take us through that journey for you to really close the loop on that journey from that in your perspective, and how that has allowed you to be where you are now, to go and ask the
Love it.
60 plus people ish of people, of guests, like, how do you get there, and with that framework.
Yeah, that's so fun. I don't think I've ever broken it down like this, to somebody else. Thought about it a lot myself.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about a very like now bold move for me, because bold moves can happen all the time, right? I mean, maybe not take on 3 at a time, but right, once you kind of are making some headway and you feel good embodied in one bold move, you might see another bold move that you want to tackle, right? And you go through the process again and again and again. And you can constantly reevaluate the desire phase too. Like, is this, now that you've been trying and experimenting, is this working for me, right? Or is there more misalignment? So it really is just it's a continuous flywheel around, just getting more information about you. That's the beauty of all of this, is it just all comes back to more information for you to then apply and know about yourself. And so, when I did my work with the career coach and I learned a lot more about myself, I recognized 3 purposes that I have in this world, And somebody that I interviewed once said, it doesn't have to be a big P purpose. I mean, it doesn't have to be like you're going to like bring clean water to the entire world to be a
Yeah.
purpose, right? Everybody has their individual gifts In fact, there's a new book out by, man, why am I going to forget his name right now? Jen, hopefully it comes back to me in a minute. But anyways, he wrote a very famous book, and now he's out with a new book. And he says that everybody has encodings, what they're meant for, not what you're good at, not what you're great at even, but what you're meant for. And that's where I think this purpose conversation kind of comes in too, because for me, I realize that I am meant for three things. I am meant to share stories in the world, right? That's one. I am meant to facilitate connection with people. I'm meant to have deeper, more authentic relationships with people. I'm meant for the podcast medium is really good for me because we go deep. I don't just stay at a social media surface level. And maybe that's why I don't love social media all that much. Maybe that's why I love building my community on Substack, because I can actually get more into the details and the layers of the conversation that something like a social media post doesn't let you do, right? So those are actions on how I'm applying who I am. And then then I know that about myself, right? And then I am like, okay, what do I want to do with that? How am I going to take that and move into a new place? I clearly wanted to take a step back from corporate. So I did an ideal day exercise, and I think this is a really cool exercise for people in the desire phase too. What does an ideal Tuesday look like? Not one where you're lying on the beach. That's not what I mean. I mean, what is an ideal Tuesday when you have to work? And for me, when I wrote
Yeah.
that vision down, it was about I'm having a lot of conversations with people. I'm learning from them, and I'm working on a variety of different projects. And I'm helping them with their strategy, their storytelling strategy. I'm helping them with their thought leadership platforms. I'm helping them make decisions about how to connect with their audiences on a deeper level. And so when I wrote this out, it wasn't really about, variety was a really big theme. I wanted to do a lot of different things in my day.
Yeah.
And so that's where I came to consulting. And I finally, said it out. I think this means I want to move into content marketing consulting. I want to try that because that's a way that you can have more variety in your day. You're not doing the same thing every day or month or year, right? And I'm able to take opportunities that might be outside of my regular 9 to 5 job, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I can become a speaker, maybe I can, any which way that could take me in so many different directions. And I wanted to be open to all of that. And so I was like, okay, my who became the podcast. And so
Yes.
I talked to so many different people.
Build it.
Yeah, I built the podcast to tap into my who's and get for me, initially, it was so much about getting the inspiration that I could actually do this.
Yeah.
And then it very much became about, okay, I can do this. Now I just need the keys to how. And so let me ask more specific questions. And then, the do phase is like, building a business is very legal. In the beginning, it's all about the setup, right? It's like,
Yeah. Foundation.
you put my
Lots of setup.
there.
Lots of structure.
Yeah. Then, it's like, okay, I've got to, reach out to customer clients or my network and see if there's anybody that I can help. Right. And so it was like putting my one foot in front of the other day by day. To then, when I look back at then days or however many days it's been, you're never able to see the progress you can make in a short amount of time when you're going through it day by day. But if you just keep going and you look back now 3 years, you can see how far you've come and really actualize and realize your bold move. And the newest bold move for me is now helping other people apply this methodology to shift and make sure that they're going in and they're listening to their voice. And whether that means they're going to stay in the same place or transform their life in the biggest, most monumental way, it doesn't matter. What matters is that at the end of the day, we get to the place that they feel comfortable, that they're acting in accordance to who they are. And all of their actions are lining up to that person of who they are.
There's so much research in that too, of when people are in their authenticity. I know it's a bit of a buzzword now, but like when they're really themselves and diving into their true passions and gifts and strengths and things that light them up, that it not only helps them, it helps the people around them. So like
Right.
if anything, you're helping the world have other people see themselves and the positive difference they could make. And that itself is helping other people realize their gifts and their true selves and their passion. And it's like this spreading of it, this ripple effect. I say a lot because it's true. I've seen it live. I do talks and workshops, and I was talking with a student like months ago, and she talked in front of a stage and was saying to someone that I learned how there's this ripple effect and how it goes deeper. And I'm like, I really resonate with that. And she's like, well, you told me it. You taught me. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't remember this. She's like, yeah, you came to my school and you did this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. But now it's like instilling confidence in someone to project their confidence onto others to then inspire someone just from like 1 hour conversation or 1 hour workshop or less. And it's like, I've seen confidence shifts real time in personal training. And it's like, it's so game changing.
Yes.
So you do this a lot.
Yeah, to share a story, I think this kind of brings the point home. It's about the fulfillment, right? Because when you are using your gift, Jen, like, what you're meant to be doing, you're living in your authenticity. And then you're able to make an impact on the world in the way that only you can. And now you've gotten the feedback from the world that what you're doing is totally in line with what you're supposed to be doing. Did you find fulfillment? Did that give you fulfillment?
Yeah, and it gave me energy. Like it wasn't work. And this time 2 years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I would have never thought that I'd be doing it. But when I look back, there were signs. I mean, I used to lead a leadership diversity club where we used to Skype people from Ghana in college, and we used to literally have conversations and connect the world together. And I didn't even think about it because my that silo vision I was mentioning earlier was on something else. Like I would have never considered right here and now how much through my whole life I had been having that as a vision, that fulfillment without realizing it. And then that's the thing, it could be right in us now if we open our eyes and if we do the work. Like you can have it, and that doesn't mean things are easy, that doesn't mean that everything's peachy. But when I'm not searching anymore. I'm grabbing it. I'm reaching for it, but it's not vague in the sense of I know it exists, so I can feel it when I want to, and I could strive, but I'm not striving for the sake of fulfillment. I'm striving to grow in my fulfillment.
Yes. And I think that the one other piece of this bold moves recipe and just making bold moves in general that we should touch on is that once you embrace the idea that in order to get to where you want to go, you need to make a bold move. There are other traits and characteristics that are integral to your success. Because making bold moves, it's called bold. I didn't just put bold in the title for a reason or for no reason, right? When you're making bold moves, there is a lot of uncertainty around you. There's a lot of unpredictability, and making a bold move requires you to become a bold person. So talking about identity shifts, right? When you're making bold moves, you are becoming somebody who is okay with living outside of your comfort zone. You are somebody who is always in a growth mindset. You are somebody who's also okay to not know all the answers, meaning you're a beginner again in a lot of ways. Yes, you bring all of your expertise, your skills, your knowledge, your prior experiences with you, and those are so helpful and they are never discredited. But there are so many other things also that you won't know that you need the answers to. And so you have to be okay with being vulnerable enough to say, I don't have all the answers here. I'm willing to learn, but I'm going to need other people to help me. And so these are the things also that people bump up against, especially as they get more experience and they maybe they're midlife and they've grown a 20-year career. It's hard to be a beginner again. Look, when I had to get into podcasting, yes, of course I've had the natural skill of interviewing people for a long time, but I didn't know a thing about producing a podcast. I didn't know anything about the technology or how to make a show that sounded good enough to put over the airways. And
Yeah.
so that first episode I put out was a great try, but it probably wasn't my best go, right? Over
Yeah.
3 years now, I've gotten much better at interviewing and public speaking, but that's a process, that's a journey, right? And I want to kind of also say that once you acquire these new skills, Jen, because you are willing to put down your swords and say, I'm going to go on this journey, and the journey is part of the joy of this. Then, once you start to acquire new skills, you start living more in your bold move. And so, something really fun that's happened to me recently is that just this week, I signed a contract with a company to host their podcast because I have become a podcaster, right?
Yes.
I wasn't a podcast. That was my bold move back in 2023. I was not a podcaster before then. I just had a vision and spark for it, a desire for it. And I started moving in that direction and learning as I went and, acquiring the new skills, not as a 20-year professional, but as somebody who was going to start I think I was 39, right? Try this out and on for size.
Yeah.
And now, because, somebody saw me doing it and thought I could be a great fit and I had the right industry expertise for their company, now, we're going to be working together in that capacity. And so I've moved into now being a podcaster.
That's fantastic. And I also want to highlight that too, like you mentioned, I want to emphasize the point that it's okay to be a beginner in something. And even myself, like I love people, like I mentioned, but I was so afraid to put myself out there. So it wasn't the curiosity that was a challenge. It was like, especially in video, I have an easier time talking in front of people for like 400 people than I do in video. So I'm like, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it imperfectly in the beginning. And I think permission for others to do the same, permission for others to start. Because even when I first became a personal trainer 6 years ago, I was so afraid. Like I was certified and everything, I got all the certifications, but you will never get the experience unless you have the clients, unless you do it. And maybe you work with people up front and they know like you're newer, but then there's a built up trust, but you build that trust, you build that confidence by doing that action. That last step is so important because I think personally from my experience too, I see a lot of people get stuck there. Like even for podcasting, I'm going to get my logo, get my website, get whatever, get everything. And then there's so many, I don't know statistic, but there's like a high number of like the people who actually get it set up and actually record it. And then the percentage of people who record it and put it out there, like it drops. But I think it's the ones who stand out are the ones who keep going as a beginner. And you can be a beginner at different points. Like now this is your new journey and you have the skills from before, but it's still a new journey. There's going to be new things, a new mindset, a new collaboration and partnership, and where you get to be in a new light. And that's fantastic and exciting. And as we start wrapping up the podcast here, I I really do want to highlight that it's so cool to see your journey, even from when you were younger and seeing the people on TV. And now it's not TV right now, but it's still, you're having the conversations. You've been in those spaces. You've been there. And now you're highlighting, say, younger youths who are watching whatever or listening, where they can understand that if they do have a passion, they can go for it. If it is hard, that doesn't mean it's going to be hard forever. Even if it is hard and it's something you like, maybe at least it's worth it. It's better. I've seen people get laid off after a 30-year career. And then now what?
Mhm.
At least I can do something I like and then pivot and see if I don't like it anymore. But at least I tried. And that's kind of how I'm starting to live life. And I'm interested for you now. How are you staying true to yourself this season?
That's such a great way to close off the podcast. And I do want to say that there might be a misconception around who makes bold moves. And, because there are people that have more maybe natural proclivity to it in terms of their risk tolerance and their ability to manage uncertainty and navigate change might be a little bit higher. But I intentionally speak to a lot of people who are not those people, and that being bold is not innate. It is a skill that you acquire. And I really want your audience to hear that, because this isn't just for some people. This is for everybody. When you hear advice out there about, often unhelpful advice about be yourself and play big and live the most authentic life you can, some people are like, well, that sounds great, but I don't know how to do that. And so the door just gets closed on it.
Yeah, that's for other people.
That's for other people. That's not for me. I think my big message is that it's for everybody. And there is a way to decode it, and I've decoded it, right? And so I think now this is my next evolution of my bold move, is helping other people learn how to make their bold moves when they feel uncertain and unclear about it, right? It's clearing up the muddiness of it to help them understand where they want to go and how to get there. So to your question, how do I stay true to myself? I think every decision now comes down to my inner compass. Of course, I confront, just like anybody else, the contrast of, no, is this going in the way that I want it to? Or maybe this isn't going as fast as I want it to. There's a lot of friction in this process. It's easy, Jen, to retreat to the safe zone because our brains are wired for safety. That's why we are where we are today as a human species, because we were wired for safety, and safety looks a lot like predictability and certainty. So when I make decisions, I try to remind myself that, is this a decision because it's coming from me and internally what I want, or is it am I making this decision because I'm scared, because other people are telling me, well, maybe it's time for you to look at that. And so I'm getting really good at being able to just be really clear that this decision I'm making because of me, or this is somebody else is having this influence on me, making me feel this way.
Distinction can be really game changing, and it's a journey. It's okay to start somewhere. It's okay to just start. And you listening, whoever you are worthy and capable and valuable in what you're doing now. And if you haven't found it yet, that doesn't mean it's not for you. So if no one said it already, I believe in you. I'm sure Kristen believes in you.
I do. Oh my gosh. I
Yeah.
believe that people have so much untapped potential that, is just there for the taking. And I think this quote is the best. I come back to this quote constantly. Somebody on my podcast said, if you have a recurring desire, you are meant for it. In other words, a recurring desire meaning not from the outside, but if you keep hearing something internally that, like for me right now, my internal ping is, Kristen, you need to be more outside in the actual physical community, less online, more in the physical community. That's been going on as like an alarm bell. I don't know if it's at the level of alarm bell right for a while, but it's like quietly whispering to me. And I'm only having that desire because it's meant for me. You don't get the desire to do something like, I don't know, Jen, but I've never gotten the desire that I need to be an astronaut, because it's not meant for me. The only reason something is there inside of you is because it's meant for you. And so stop ignoring it and start leaning into, what could that be? Just be open to the possibility that it is for you, and what could it look like to move down that.
Fascinating. And it allows that openness of, and maybe it's dance at this moment. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's starting a podcast of your own, or taking a leap of your own, or trying something new, because you can always try. You can always, even if it's in your free time. So as we wrap up here, we have, thinking about you, that desire, and going through this, and then surrounding yourself to podcasts like this and others. If you really have a goal, surrounding yourself, it could be books as well, like somewhere, some proof that it's possible. Even if you don't believe it yet, then take the actions of, okay, if you really want to be an astronaut, you really want that to be, let's say, a teacher or whatever, okay, maybe volunteer, take many actions to volunteer in your community. And right now, okay, say I am a teacher, I'm going to teach my brother this new thing. I'm going to go in the world and listen to what the community needs so that I can also share the wisdom and the lessons I have. So you can take those actions right now. And Kristen Rocco, thank Thank you so much for coming. For anyone listening and wants to connect with Kristen further, we'll have all of her details in the show notes, and probably the book that we mentioned earlier. Anything else that we talked about, we'll put in those show notes. We'll link back so you can connect further. And if you're going through that transition of your own and you're looking for it, I'm sure you could connect further there.
Jen, it has been an honor to be on this podcast with you because you are a great example of a bold mover, and you have embraced all of the things we've talked about today without even really knowing it. You just started flying, right? But as you can see now, it does follow this roadmap, and that's what I'm excited about. And I'm just so grateful to you that you are being a who for so many other people to show them that, yes, my dream, your dream is possible.
Yes, likely. And you got this wherever you are. Just don't let anyone else's expectations just stop you from that burning desire you have inside. It's there for a reason.